ahead and call the workshop to order and call on the clerk for the roll, please.
Councilmember Sullivan? Here. Councilmember Newton? Here. Councilmember Bash? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Bowen? Here. Mayor Grunmeyer? Here. All present.
Our first item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any cards?
Madam Mayor, there are no speaker cards.
Okay, thank you. So then we're going to proceed right into the budget workshop with continued discussion for our fiscal year 26-27. Joshua, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council members. So this is a continued discussion on the preliminary budget. We did start off discussions on May 20th with the initial presentation of the operating budget. The subsequent week, we did the initial presentation of the Capital Improvement Program, or CIP budget, which brings us here today for subsequent follow-up. So how we started the initial proposed budget was having projected revenues of $31.6 million, projected expenditures of $34.1 million, and a projected deficit of $2.5 million. That would have brought our fund balance from a starting point of $37.4 million down to $34.9 million. Based on feedback from the May 20th meeting, we made some, the staff made some adjustments to reduce the $2.5 million deficit. We also provide other detailed information to council members, but we'll essentially summarized here on the PowerPoint. We did remove funding from 3 positions that were vacant in the proposed budget. We did remove funding for one of the new positions that were requested during the initial proposed budget. We did have reductions in some contractual positions of $270,000. Reduction from updates from recent recruitment, so how we budget for any vacant positions at the time the budget is prepared. It is budgeted at a certain step, and then given timing, that is then updated to the step that is done for as part of their onboarding. Other department reductions of vehicle replacement charges, we reduced some of those down in select departments by $75,000. We did do some adjustments and updating to revenue to align it to what we expect in overall charges of $15,000. We have reached a tentative agreement with NGEA, and the fiscal impact of that is $55,675. For overall net impact of $680,000 from the initial budget. So that brings our updated overall projected revenues to $31.657 million. Expenditures reduced down to $33.5 million, down to a projected deficit of $1.8 million. It would be this would be management's good faith projection of what it would be cost-wise based on historical scope and scale of operations to operate for the next fiscal year. So how this would work from a fund balance perspective is that $1.8 million deficit would be put into a couple of buckets. So one of the costs is for the Norconian for appraisal and assessment charges. That will be applied against the economic development reserve for that amount, and then remaining amount would then be subject to council discussion today, applied against reserves at $1.7 million, still ending the next fiscal year with $35.5 million in fund balance. As a refresher to council, we do have a few options available for balancing the budget of undesignated general fund balances. I'll get into kind of more what these mean in just a moment. We do have some funds available in the Equipment Replacement Fund. Measure R is also available, as some projects can be moved to future years, and also some of the costs relating to OPEB and pension can be used against the trust funds that have been funded over the years with those available balances for those particular funds. The goal is to allocate the available funds to support the council priorities and to balance the budget. Other through a few options is using general fund reserves. I'll go into what those reserves actually mean. Deferring funds to any future periods, reallocating to other funds based on different priorities, reducing funding or projects, programs, or services, transfers from other funds, or evaluating new funding sources. So as discussed in the last workshop, it was requested to give a refresher on what our fund balance or our reserve policy is. This was a policy that was adopted back in June 2023 under a resolution that its intention was to promote the long-term financial stability, prepare for economic uncertainty and emergencies, fund future capital and infrastructure needs, assess long-term liabilities, and establish guidelines for reserve funding, use, and reporting. So there are various different categories of reserve. The first one is kind of the general operating reserve category. Each one of these has its own goal or target that, as per the policy, that we would reach for over a number of years. And then I'll also give a general description. So our operating reserve is, by policy, 25% of our annual operating reserves. This is an automatic calculation that we put into there. So when we say undesignated fund balances, that is net of any operating ones that we still have in a quote-unquote rainy day fund. So these are primarily used for cash flow subsidies to address revenue shortfalls. I kind of want to emphasize that one because we did have a little bit of a shortfall in revenues in comparison to the expenditures into this year. We are experiencing some economic uncertainty and then unanticipated expenditures. We did have some new expenditures that were highlighted in the first workshop. Next category would be emergency and natural disaster. We would gradually reach this to a $1 million reserve. We're about 1 year away from reaching that $1 million reserve. This is, by definition in the policy, is to provide funding for extraordinary or infrequent events such as natural disasters, local emergencies, or major unforeseen circumstances. So examples of this can be fires, earthquakes, big tropical storms from high winds. Essentially, funding from recoveries from this can be delayed during emergencies of that type. So this would be a stopgap measure to take us through into there if exercised by council. Next one is infrastructure reserve. So the idea is to set aside money each year to essentially replace our assets over time. Most of our assets do have a estimated useful life. Depending on the asset, it will range anywhere from 5 years for a certain type of equipment, vehicles around 7 to 10 years, all the way to some buildings lasting about 25 years. The idea of it is we would gradually reach a threshold of being able to fund 50% of that for replacement or deferred maintenance for those particular infrastructure. This would be for funding for future use to fund major infrastructure repairs, facility improvements, replacement of aging capital assets for long-term service delivery. So when we would use this is if the general fund were to fund any particular infrastructure projects that do not have any other special revenue funds available, we could use this particular reserve to fund those particular costs. As of this year, all of our capital projects are fully funded through a multitude of special revenue funds. Fleet maintenance reserve. So the idea of it is our fleet, vehicles and other equipment, again, do have a useful life. And the idea of it is by the time we start setting funds aside for this, we're able to buy in cash its replacement, depending on wear and tear, how well we take care of our equipment, so on and so forth. So how this works is each year we charge the respective departments a vehicle replacement fee based on the number of vehicles within those respective departments. The idea of it is to fund those over time as part of those internal service charges. Similar idea to information technology is the idea is to fund 100% of our IT software as those reach their natural life or are supplanted by new technology. The idea that we would also use internal service charges to fund this, again, over time of those particular pieces of technology or software. Economic Development Reserve. So this one had a goal equivalent of 10 acres of commercial property that can fluctuate over time depending on the market. This does provide strategic investment for opportunities to stimulate economic growth, diversifying revenues, or increase taxable value within the community. The best example of what we are proposing in this reserve category is for the Norconian. This particular site does have some potential for economic growth within the community. So we're using these funds to provide assessments and appraisals of those properties for potential future development. Pension liability reserve, you saw some of those balances as options. So the idea is to pre-fund 70% of our pension obligations. This helps these funds can be used to help subsidize the cost of pension. So why these became popular back in the late 2010s is pensions were becoming more and more of a cost, and the projections of those was yielding fairly high over time that essentially almost 10 years from now has reached a point to where some agencies are having to utilize some of those to help balance their budgets. Another way of saying it is the cost of the pensions have kind of outpaced the growth within some agencies' budgets. Similar to the pension is also the OPEB, or other post-employment benefits. This also has a similar goal or target of 70% of those obligations. Again, these obligations are determined by an annual actuarial calculation that we use a third party on. We can then also use these trust fund fees to subsidize any kind of healthcare cost over the long term as we reach a certain point, or the amounts are just continuing invested until such times are needed. Self-insurance reserve, this is based on a actually determined funding level. The idea of it is to provide funding for our general liability or workers' comp claims. In the event that we do have a catastrophic claims, we want to have some of those funds available to address some of those claims to not have a huge hit on general operations, as some of those can be quite substantial. Also, sick and vacation leave reserve. So each full-time employee, as per negotiated MOUs, do have certain vacation sick balances that do accrue over time. Those are valued based on the employee's rate of pay at the end of the fiscal year. We do update those balances at the end of each fiscal year based on that current employee's rate of pay, and that is then set aside for upon employee's separation, either from general turnover or retirement. So how these particular reserves are funded is the operating reserve is funded first from annual surpluses maintained through contingency appropriations. So when we do the budget, there's an automatic formula that we calculate 25% of the reserves that is automatically applied first. Then, depending on available funding, over time from either the undesignated or projected surplus in a particular budget year, we would then fund $200,000 until we reach the minimum of $1 million. As of right now, we have around 800,000 within that particular reserve. Infrastructure reserve, the idea is we would take 15% of any general fund surplus. So over the years, we have applied a formula against any reserve. So if we have $1 million surplus in a year, 15% of that is automatically applied to that infrastructure reserve. Same thing for the economic development reserve. Fleet and IT reserves are funded through annual internal service charges through the various departments and divisions, through the general fund, as well as water, sewer, and any other special revenue funds. Pension OPEB reserves are funded through annual contributions during the budget process. As part of the actuarial evaluations, we do work with those actuaries to determine the best method of funding that to get to the strategic 70% reserve over that particular point in time. So that's going to move us from the operating budget over to CIP, Capital Improvement Program. This was presented in the May 26th meeting. So based on feedback, there were a few updates to the CIP projects proposed. The updated balances will bring between all the funding categories by fund of a total of $72 million through the various projects. Highlighting the changes that were done from the initial proposed one back in May to what was in your agenda packet today was the removal of $500,000 for the Ingalls Event Center Master Plan, a reduction in cost for the Raleigh Gym door replacement project by $25,000. It was initially proposed at $50,000 project cost, reducing that down by $25,000 for a total project cost of $25,000. In the next council meeting, there will be a SB 1 or Senate Bill 1 road maintenance project addition for the Saratoga Circle rehab project for $300,000. That one does have sufficient fund balance from new incoming revenues and accumulated balances to fund that project. We just wanted to be sure that was captured within the CIP budget. Based on that, I know it'll be approved at the next council meeting. In the CIP budget, you will see a new category that we are putting in this year is back a couple of months ago, we did have a workshop on development impact fees. So as part of the development impact fee study process, it is best practice to have future projects, quote unquote, approved so that they have an underlying nexus for the study that can be developed. So the idea of it is, as part of the study, those have to be identified projects that are can be actually used within that study. These projects do not represent all city projects, only development impact fee or DIF eligible projects that are presently identified with estimates based on recent comparable projects, based on department heads' best estimates from recent actual projects or ones from neighboring cities. The scale and scope in these can change once the project is scheduled and engineering estimates at the time are developed at the cost of the particular project over time. So in there you'll see the familiar categories between animal control, fire, circulation, storm drain, water and wastewater, recycled water, general government, and based on feedback we're adding the new category of sheriff or that portion of public safety. So with that, that highlights the changes from the operating budget and the CIP budget from the initial proposed workshops. The goal today is to address any council comments and questions and enough to move forward with presenting a final proposed budget for the June 17th meeting. That concludes staff's presentation. I'd be happy to, and myself and other department heads would be happy to address any questions of council.
Joshua, I guess I have a question on the unfunded DIF projects. Didn't want to share them with the group or expect that council's going to review them on their time, because I'm going to guess you're going to have some feedback. on the items that are listed on that particular part of our packet.
Yes, we did anticipate some feedback on those particular items because of that addition. I guess as a point, if we can possibly do a first round of discussions on operating, then we can then circle back on discussions regarding CIP and the unfunded projects
Okay, so you want to start with operating first?
at your discretion.
Okay, so questions on the operating budget? Do you want it, Bea, do you have some? Greg? I'm asking if you have questions on the operating budget.
Okay. So my first question on this, because my notes are in various orders, so if I have a delay on this, on city vacancies, okay, and then where you show this reduction of the budget of, let's say, $670-some thousand. Correct. Okay. That, and when we talked yesterday, that the bulk of that on this breakdown seems to be, it was a duplication between funded positions and contractual positions.
Yes, so in community development specifically, relating to the building official and some of the contracted planning services, our goal in this particular year under the new management is to bring a lot of those planning and building and safety services back in-house, utilizing staff. The goal is to, until those positions are filled, to use salary savings to fund the contractual positions until those are done. There was some initial duplication of costs, but we did align those with that principle.
Okay, so my first question is, why weren't we aware of this at the first budget meeting when it was 2.5, that why was duplication allowed in that? Why was staff management not aware of that?
I think it was just a mix of, you know, when we were reviewing the budget and the positions, when I reviewed it, you know, I had the assumption that we were having the salaries, but we had already reduced the contractual. So that was my understanding. And then when we went into the details of it, that's when I contacted Colby and Joshua, and we had a meeting. I said, I need a breakdown of, you know, how many months are being funded, because yeah, it says contractual for a contractor, but it could be like 3 different contracts under that contractor. So once we had that meeting, that's when it came to light, and so that's when we reduced it.
Okay, so I don't look at it as a real world reduction. I look at it as correcting a error. So going along here, you have and we had this from last time, on city vacancies, customer service supervisor, and that's recruitment in progress. This is a funded position in the general fund?
Correct.
In this budget. Under the lens of efficiency consolidation. Or even maybe go a further step, I'd call it like a conditional hiring freeze. Is this position, could it be filled by other mid-management personnel?
It's possible, but there's underlying functions within finance. So the accounting side of it is handled by the accounting manager, but the account clerk side, they handle majority of the customer interface between some of our utility billings, general miscellaneous billings, and over-the-counter. Those are handled by the supervisors, so they are the ones that field calls from customers, address adjustments, things of that nature, versus the account manager handles the day-to-day accounting functions such as accounts payable, payroll, bank reconciliations, and so forth.
How many mid-management people are in finance?
2.
Okay.
So I guess at a supervisory level, 2, depending. We do have the the analyst position that is under mid-management.
And the accountant.
And the accounts.
An account. So amongst those 4, I would like to consider that maybe we hold on that for a while and put recruitment on hold. Then in that same realm, I'm trying to understand with community development, which we're still going to move forward with building official recruitment and senior planner recruitment, correct?
Correct.
And that savings would come from, excuse me, with the planner, we would save money because we won't have that outside consultant.
Correct.
And the same with building.
Correct.
Okay. So where are we with administrative aides in community development? When I was looking at going through all of this, it looks like you've eliminated, there were like 2 and you eliminated 1 position?
The administrative assistant, within that one, it was a vacancy at the time. In order to reduce the deficit, we had discussions with department heads, and we made the management decision to unfund that position.
Okay, so that leaves a part-timer back there?
Yes.
Okay. And so the part-timer right now is backing up the counter and being counter support for?
That would be Colby.
The part-time staff that's been there has been focused on scanning documents. The city has been doing that for a number of years, taking the physical records and the physical plans and permit records, and then transitioning them from the physical records into electronic records.
Okay.
And so for the past 3-4 decades, whatever's been on hand here in the office space, that position has been singularly focused on that. So in terms of department-wide support or any counter support, that person's not really trained or delivering any of that service today.
Okay. So record scanning being done by planning, shouldn't that be a function of the city clerk's office?
Something that can be explored as part of a identified priority within that department to do a citywide scanning project. But in my experience, plans, drawings, and other related documents do require some specialized review because you want to make sure everything's aligned appropriately. But it can, those can be done. But right now, city clerk's office is a little understaffed at the moment.
Okay, so, well, let's broaden that up a little bit. You have planning, community development staff at the counter, and you're taking away the only backup they have. So from a budget standpoint, if we don't want to increase costs, my question is, which department would like to give up an administrative aid to backfill planning or community development?
There's also like departments like Sam, he doesn't have an administrative analyst currently.
No, I'm saying an administrative aid is the position that you gave up, you took away.
Correct.
So,
To clarify, the specific title is the administrative assistant because the aide is a part-time or equivalent position.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
sure.
Sorry.
Who wants to give theirs up? Lisette? Which one would you, up to you, I'm asking you to consolidate. It would be up to you to say, you're moving this person over there to backfill it.
Since that one is a new position, a newer position, I feel that's appropriate to keep vacant. I know city clerk, is the other one that has the admin assistant as well as human resources. So I think that would be very detrimental because human resources, based on, the last couple months in dealing with human resources, that position is needed. And in city clerk, the amount of public records requests that we get, I wouldn't suggest removing that one. And then I'm trying to think, Sam doesn't have anybody.
Well, how about this, so I don't take up a lot of time.
Take all the time you want.
Okay. That's my challenge to you. I'll let
Okay.
you figure it out on that. But that's kind of the direction I'm going, that way. So back on operating, or staying on operating, Joshua, Kevin, I couldn't give you an honest answer yet, okay? That's so much paper that's been thrown at us, and it's version 1, version 2, it's a 3-card Monty, so all I can tell you is you watch the Queen, all right? In your updated budget projection, you had mentioned that we take $125,000 reserved for economic development,
Correct.
and you referenced the Norconian. As we move forward on that and start conversations with the developer, any type of appraisal, anything in that degree, should be a cost borne by the developer.
If amenable.
I'm not
Colby
sure where
can-
that number came from, but that's something I'd
Yeah.
lay on a developer.
And it's a very good point. As our position is changing rapidly here as the state is releasing the property out for bidders, we are positioning ourselves to, bring on a development partner, and that development partner would be in the position, whereas we would see it and demand it, take on all the development related costs, soft costs, hard costs in dealing with the state, developing proposals, and doing phase 1 environmentals, appraisals, any other documentation there. I would push to our development partner to perform all that work and bear those costs. So if we were to look at that $125,000, it's less required by the city today as we are building a partnership that may come forward in our next council meeting. So there's some movement there that we could lower that number.
What would be your professional opinion to lower it to?
I would say that I think we should probably retain 50,000. We can lower it by 75,000. And I would only hold on to some money because there's definitely going to be some costs that the city's just not going to be able to get away from. And I don't want to be left with zero. So I would start there. I think we could lower that by 75 to 50.
Could you work with 25?
I bet you we could.
Okay, let's go 25,000 and
Yeah.
add back 100. It's a nice round number.
Yeah.
Mayor? Can you come back to me on more on operating stuff at this time? I still have some items, but I have to organize them.
I'm in the same position.
Okay.
Mia, any questions?
No, I'm still absorbing and trying to figure out where my questions and thoughts would go.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Bowen, any questions about the operating budget at this time?
Not yet.
Councilmember Bash. Will you make sure and turn on your microphone for me, please? Thank you.
Balancing the budget, number 7. So are you suggesting that we take money from OPEB and from the pension rate stabilization fund or not fund it this year? I'm confused.
These are options available to council, and per the policy, that is something that council will have to elect. My recommendation, given the almost 21 million we have available, is utilizing undesignated. It's
21 million where?
the first number on top, the 20.8 million.
So what I'm confused about is, because I was going to get to that last, but since you mentioned it, the undesignated general fund balance, that's what has not been committed. So, but we've already committed to the equipment replacement fund. Are you recommending we take away from 2, 3, 4, and 5?
I would recommend the two fully undesignated, so with that 20.8 million.
So you're not saying the rest of them, just the one at the top?
Yeah, just to be full and transparent, those are all options. We want to put all those on the table, but my recommendation would be utilizing the fully the undesignated general fund balance.
So I sit on these crazy committees, and one of the huge problems with just about every city in the state of California is they haven't funded the trust funds of retiree medical, and they haven't funded the pension rate stabilization fund. They don't have these things. These are things that even when we were in dire straits, we figured out a way to fund. So I would be really against pulling any money out of those two bottom funds.
I entirely agree. That's why those are our options, but those I would leave for last. That's why I
And then
recommend
the
the first
equipment
one.
replacement fund, I drove a car just the other day that definitely is close to being replaced. It's just a whole bunch of things were going wrong with it, and I forgot to call the set and tell her. Measure R, just one of the things that we've run into is, I was there from the very beginning. Measure R, we planned for pay raises, we planned for police and fire through Measure R. What happened was nobody expected Measure R to be as successful as it was, and truthfully, nobody expected little Norco, to ever have a reserve of $30 million. I can remember going to 5 million, 6 million, 7 million, 10 million. And all of a sudden, though, because we have that reserve, we're not allowed to dip into Measure R. So while I understand the cuts, I went home after our last meeting and I cut $2.7 million out of the budget. But nobody would like them and nobody would have the will to do that. Youth sports, I was able to cut that in half, just willy-nilly. I was able to cut a whole bunch of things out. But in my heart of hearts, I don't see how cutting 15 here, 25 there, 10 here. I get that you should do that, but I'm just concerned that, one, we're going to end up with a staff. I mean, right now, in my personal opinion, we have the best staff we've ever had. And we're being called upon as a small city to do truly extraordinary things. We have 110 acres of a prison. We have all this stuff going on. And I worry that if we begin to get into the employee end of this, people may not be able to do the work. I'm already afraid at times to call and say, gee, can you take care of this? Because I know that people are so taxed. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I am concerned that we're running huge youth programs. We're running, and youth programs are important because that's how we keep them out of patrol cars. Police and fire, we always knew that police and fire was going to become more and more and more expensive. So I hope we're not just going to, what I would like to see maybe is go ahead and make those little cuts, but I'm just concerned that at this time I have a feeling we're at a point in our city where we're about to expand in a way that a lot of these things will be covered. And I feel like we prepared for this via Measure R. And so I'm just not as concerned, and I get really nervous when I start seeing unfunded liabilities not being funded and vehicles not being funded. I don't think we're yet at that point. And so I'm not sure, and then truthfully, the budget this year is really confusing. I've done 17 of these now, and for whatever reason, and I'm not blaming anybody. For whatever reason, I'm just really confused by this budget. And what kind of made me the most confused was that I found out that we actually were in the hole last year a lot. But that said, I'm seeing services being delivered. I'm seeing tons of things being done. I mean, for a city our size, all the special events we're still doing. I mean, you know, we cut out 10 here, but in some ways, we don't really even have a shortfall. We have Measure R sitting there that at one point we talked about, in fact, I can remember Andy telling me to my face, and by the way, I reconfirmed it today, someday Measure R will probably pay for all of the police and fire. And that was his intent, but nobody expected it to do as well as it has. So I think my big ask is that in the future, I mean, if I'm still in this chair, just more clarity on the budget. And for the amount of money that is being spent, we do a lot of stuff in this city. So, I mean, trust me, I'm talking to other cities all the time, and they're not doing this stuff at all. They're not generating this kind of income. They're not paying. They're totally behind in all the retiree medical. They're totally behind in pensions. So on the one hand, I want to say good job. On the other hand, cut as much as you can. But this year, I'm just not as concerned as. And yet, at the same time, I'm really hearing Robin and I'm really hearing Greg. I get it. So I'm sort of torn, but. I don't know, I don't think that was helpful at all, was it? That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
A couple more. We're keeping Measure R stuff separate, or can I ask a few questions on that also?
full budget is up for discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. And I agree with you a lot, by the way.
Well, I agree with you, and not all the time, but on the pension contribution, on the OPEB and all of that, we set that up a long time ago so that some point in time, our contribution that was typically $300,000 a year, and I remember one year we did zero or we reduced it, that we would get to a point where the interest earned would be offsetting the increases, where we wouldn't have to do a contribution. I don't want to touch that at all. Where are we at that point?
I will have to look at the valuation because I think we're actually going through our OPEB valuation right now for the updated year, and that can be something I can get back to you individually. I don't have the answer right now because they look out on a multi-year point. I don't want to give you an incorrect answer right now.
Okay. But at some point in time,
Yes,
we'll achieve that.
Yeah, the idea of it is you have multi-million dollars in the bank. It's going to earn you quite a bit of interest, and it'll pay
Right.
for itself in theory.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's the way we set it up originally.
Yes.
So, a Measure R, couple of questions. So, in the budget, we took out the Engels Park Master Plan, $500,000. I can't find where that $500,000 went to. It's, going through this, it doesn't look like it went back into the Measure R fund balance. Well, I know it didn't. Okay. Pardon?
That CIP number would have to be updated on the draft. Because of the changes in the Measure R projects, that budget would have to be, page would have to be updated. So that would increase by the $500,000 and the 25,000. And the 25,000.
So, give me a little more clarity on that. We took out the 500,000
Yes.
from the master plan.
Yep.
The budget that we're being shown right now for Measure R has only, the fund balance has only increased $25,000.
It would, so right now it's going to be showing a fund balance at the end of year at 1.9. That would bring it to 2.4 once the updated CIP number is put in there.
Why am I not finding it?
It would be on the, this particular sheet. So it's a linkage. So that portion of, because how Measure R is facilitated, that one from the CIP part of it for its budget, because it funds a little bit of operational cost, that CIP number just needs to be updated to reflect the change.
It's not going anywhere else.
No.
Okay.
Measure R stays in Measure R.
Okay.
'Cause that one goes specifically under audit, and we wash that one like a hawk.
Not to belabor it, I have an issue with that, Joshua. 25,000 for reducing that one project certainly moved over there. And it's on the same category as the $500,000, but the $500,000 didn't move over.
It was just a update problem.
You know, it's like when we did the annexation over on Bluff, we'd ask one question and come back with 5 more. So, another Measure R question. This is for Sam. You had $100,000 for street improvements, Norco L. Okay. Notwithstanding the fact that the school district caused the problem, it should be their problem to correct. So Measure R, we've allocated $100,000. My question to you, Sam, is the Streets and Trails Commission made a recommendation to change the scope of the work, change the projects, don't use pavers, use stabilized DG. What's going to be the reduction of that project? And if you want to tell me zero, it's the school district's problem, you got a gold star.
I would imagine at a minimum it'd be 50. Probably something more like 65,
Okay.
if not more. The biggest cost is probably going to be the asphalt berm that we have to install on the west side of the road.
And that was with the recommendation of Streets and Trails?
Yes, they wanted to omit the pavers, which would be by far the biggest cost.
Sure.
That would be
Okay.
20 to 30 grand.
And since you're in design on that, that'll be reflected, that change in the scope of work?
Yes, I mean, they recommended it, and it's definitely a more lower level, you know, I don't want to get into
Okay.
the details of it, but yes, we can do that.
All right. So this is a ticky-tack thing, all right? But it, once again, it's one of these little things that lend to other items. And this went back to the sheriff's substation, okay? And the substation is a critical element in our whole public safety approach, in our policy, and have always defended it. So that, hard, I know that. Right, 100%. So that's not the issue with that. So I sent an email, and from our last meeting, the explanation that, you know, what is the discount that we get, okay? And the Sheriff's Department, which Joshua relayed to me, was change in hours. It was a complicated explanation. And what I was looking for was an X minus Y equal, okay? X being, here's the cost, minus what's our discount, leaves us a certain number. And with that, in your reply and in the sheriff's reply, it looked like it was like an $81,000 savings. But there was, and I don't know if you had replied to me on this, but there was a $46,000 rate number, and I was curious to, is the savings 81,000, or is it 81,000 less 46,000 in the sheriff's explanation? Because I think the 46,000 were like, I don't want to say intangibles, but it was like set team and this and that. And I can, it's on my other phone, my city phone that I didn't bring in.
The annual facility rate of 46,000 is
Right.
what Norco is responsible for. The other facilities that the department needs to run that cover support of running the department. This includes homicide unit, dispatch personnel, internal affairs.
Right, so is that 81,000 savings minus 46?
Lieutenant Hall, if you'll go ahead and grab the microphone and answer Councilmember Newton. Thank you.
I know the reasonings, or what it comprises.
No, that would still, every contract would pay that facility rate. Because it's not this facility, you're paying it for all the other facilities that are housed within
Okay.
RSO. So every city that has a contract pays part of dispatch. Every city pays part of the internal affairs, because we need all those other functions and, not departments, units and bureaus.
Sure,
We have to
okay.
have those, so like, like if I had a personnel investigation, it's handled by PSB, even though you guys pay for me, that's what that pays for. Dispatch, all those facilities that are within RSO that we get, SWAT team, like when, every city has to pay that. So that would be, and your responsibility, from my understanding, this is all, county, but my understanding is that the facility rate is based on the size of the function. So like obviously Moreno Valley pays a much higher facility rate than Norco would pay, because they have so many more people and things going on there.
Okay. So then can I assume then the savings, net savings we're getting today is $81,000?
Correct.
Okay, by having the substation.
Correct.
Okay, so,
The facility rate we just we covered, so that was,
Right.
I was under the impression too that it had something to do with this facility, but it's the facilities
right,
outside
right.
of here, basically.
so, and I know someone from the sheriff's department is going to speak in the near future to us.
Yes, that she's
And-
going to go over the contract rates, and she is the person that I go to for answers to questions like this when it has to do with our contract rates and what's included in them.
There'll be a presentation at the June 17th meeting.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask her to negotiate the discount, so, okay.
You can ask all you want.
Yeah, I know. Well, doesn't
I don't
you
know
have
how
to
they get
ask?
those numbers, yeah.
Right. But with that, okay, so, in the perfect world, you go, God, we're saving $86,000. So how do we get to a net zero or a neutral, right? Then we shouldn't spend more than $86,000 on our costs for the substation, okay? That's in the perfect world, and that's not going to happen. But what it does is brings up more questions, more efficiencies, and more consolidating things. So in the breakdown that you gave me of what our costs are monthly for the substation, which was, I don't recall the overall total on that.
Around 50,000 approximately per year.
Yeah, it was more than that.
Oh,
Way more than that. So the one that jumped at me was janitorial. And I think it was more of the silliness that we're paying $800 a week just to clean the sheriff's substation. And we know how our cleaning service is, so I'm sure they're emptying the waste baskets, hitting the floors, cleaning the restrooms, but they're not dusting, they're not doing the baseboards. That's $3,200 a month. Who in this room would pay somebody to come to their house at $800 a week to empty your trash, clean your restroom, and vacuum your floors? Nobody. But it's $40,000 a year just for the substation. That's almost a full-time job.
Yes.
And it's like efficiency, right?
If you'd like me to. Yeah.
If you want to comment on it, go ahead.
So yes, the sheriff's substation does get serviced every day of the week, so 7 days a week.
Right.
They are taking care of the restrooms there, the floors, and taking out the trash and everything like that. This is a contract that we have been working on to go out to RFP on. So we're trying to get some other contracts out of the way, but this will go out to bid in the next 6 months. This is a contract that we inherited, and it's just time. Every 5 years, we need to go out to bid, and we also try to cap it at a 4% cap like we've done with our other contracts. And yeah, but we are going to be working on that to get better pricing.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's what I mean. We got to have that attitude of, you wouldn't do it at your house. You wouldn't pay that much. I know you wouldn't.
I know.
Okay.
I need to.
Right.
Cheap.
Yeah, but it's that point. That's what I mean. It leads to other things that where I start looking at our overall contractual services. That $3.2 million a year. And it's a big number. What can we realistically, once again, consolidate in that number?
Seeing some of the first steps in that process is under the new management of some of the departments is as they get to know those departments and understand those efficiencies, academic community development, you're seeing those steps of bringing those contractual services in-house and leaving the complicated ones to those third parties. So it's something that we do identify and we put as part of our efforts based on priority to get into those, because some of those we have to write out contracts, prioritize RFPs amongst other projects, but we do look to do fiscal responsibility in each of the departments to have those efficiencies so that we can free up dollars for other things.
Robin, that's all for right now. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Sullivan, anything? Mayor Pro Tem Bowen, anything? Kevin, anything else?
When they do and I get you're looking for a new contract, but my understanding is they also have to completely sanitize the cell. Does that happen? I mean, it's a little bit more than just cleaning floors, or do they just leave it grungy?
I mean, it's definitely clean. They do a good job. I don't know what they do each time for the cell, or if that's in their contract, but they do clean. It's always clean.
I was just curious. Just to add to this, I had a conversation with her husband, who happens to be in the cabinet, and he made me aware of the fact that we have a very unique situation in Norco. They do everything they can. They do everything they can to give us the best possible deputies, and sometimes they don't even want to come. But we also have a very unique relationship with our police chief. It's why when all the other cities were having so much trouble all of a sudden, it's why we didn't know, because truthfully, we're special. And I want to make sure that whatever we do, we can keep that. And I'm not suggesting but I really want to make sure that they continue to keep Norco special, because we get a whole bunch of extra things that other cities just don't get. I mean, even our relationship with you is totally different. And really, I guess it was Ross Cooper that put this into play. So I just wanted to kind of make that observation. I was kind of proud of it, because they really value this contract. So that's all.
I think my only comments would be kind of a combination between what Greg and Kevin has said, and maybe more so to highlight what Kevin has said when he mentioned that this particular budget process hasn't been as clear as potentially previous budget processes. And I'm not sure if it's intentional or not. But I think just the presentation from the beginning, again, I'm just going to go back to transparency, and then in terms of like what Greg said, if we all went into this process with the idea or concept that this was our personal checking account and our personal savings account, and if you wouldn't do it at home, it shouldn't be done for the organization. And I also understand that we're going to go into the next fiscal year with some type of a deficit. I also agree with Kevin that there are things on the horizon that will likely help negate that deficit in the future. But the way that I look at it is really when we're dipping into quote unquote our savings account, it should be for a one-time cost, an emergency, a thing that has to be done, not something that's an ongoing cost. And, you know, in looking, I'll be honest, I haven't had time to go through the budget pages like I typically would and compare side by side. But there's some areas where the bottom line is the same, but there have been somewhat substantial changes within the line items. And I know salaries are all going up across the board because of our agreements. But there's some that are almost double. And so I do still have some concerns with those, and I can email staff on some of those separately. And I guess the other thing that I would like looked at is just in terms of the operating budget is like what Greg said, being more efficient and consolidating things down and moving staff where there is an extra administrative assistant, moving people around. And I get it, it's uncomfortable because you're going to change somebody's work life. But if that's what needs to be done, then that's what needs to be done. And then, like, as far as the operating budget and those things, and again, I feel like a broken record, it is not our job to go through these things and be nitpicking and doing all the things. Like, we're the policymakers, but when the budget is not presented clearly, when there's substantial clerical errors, it's like, to a certain extent, I feel obligated to go through and make sure that we're not signing off on a budget that's incorrect. And so I hope we get to a place where, you know, that we can look at this and do a few spot checks and be like, yep, everything matches up. Yep, it makes sense. But we're just, in my opinion, we're still not there, which is, it's disappointing. So I feel like we're getting closer. But I guess that's kind of where I'm at on this particular, the operating budget and the things that you've presented. And then if I have more questions, I will send an email because I know we're on a timeline for approving the budget. But, you know, I would say if it continues down this path, and I know budgets are year-round and ongoing, that this process will likely have to start earlier so that we aren't jammed up against a timeline if your council has questions or wants to make changes in the budget. So again, I'm hoping that that's not intentional, that we're on this abbreviated timeline. So with that, you want to discuss CIP things, or, I mean, I feel like those were pretty straightforward, but I will switch to CIP and the other items unless any council members have more comments on the operating budget. Okay, we'll go ahead and switch to the CIP.
Mayor Grunmeyer, if we can request a 5-minute recess, we did prepare some slides to help present the unfunded DIF projects. So we can have 5 minutes to do a quick switch for that, and we can then begin those discussions.
Okay.
Just a few minutes.
Yeah, 5-minute recess.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So coming back to capital improvement, this is a new section of unfunded projects. As a reminder, this is part of the development impact fee study process. Essentially, the best practice is to have a quote-unquote approved list of future projects that would be used as part of the Nexus study. Again, these do not represent all the city projects, only DIF eligible. They are based on current projections and estimates, and currently are not yet budgeted or scheduled at this time. In total, between all the categories, we have about 297 million projects between the various different categories. So what we'll do is we'll go through each of the categories. I guess as far as format, we can probably maybe do all at once or individual. We can bounce between. So the 297 is all. Correct.
I don't think the discussion is going to be ideal. So I would say, do you want all of your questions and comments at one time, or do you want them by section?
I think it might be good all at one time. That way we can
Sounds good.
be sure to get through all the different sections.
So then we'll go ahead and present and questions at the end.
Okay, and then as we get there, the department heads will kind of go through their thoughts and ideas with the particular project. So we starting with the first diff category of animal control of a proposed project of a animal shelter rebuild and expansion project. The idea that this would be for future use as the city grows over the next 25 years. The need as part of our core values will be for additional capacity as part of our animal shelter services. Within the fire area, this is something that was proposed in a previous study, but something that can be will likely be considered in the, going forward is an expansion of Fire Station 57. Various other particular projects, including additional fire engines, to be essentially pre-fund these to have for use as we grow in need of additional capacity. And then the potential for a third fire station as we develop and reach those points. Circulation, so these would be particular street and freeway projects. Some of these would be for like the park and ride. The bigger one was a change out from the 4th Street one that was proposed in the 2014 study over to the upgrade of the 6th Street I-15 interchange, essentially kind of bring that to additional lanes to foster capacity due to the amount of traffic between Ingalls Event Center and Silver Lakes at certain times of the week, as well as various other streets and trail improvement projects. Storm drain will go into various different lines across the city, upgrading those as the city upgrading those as the city grows over time, identifying those at those particular line points. Water, as our aging infrastructure gets to a certain point, certain lines will have to be replaced, and in certain areas as we grow, booster stations will be required in order to service those particular areas, as well as related master plans and vehicles to service those particular utility areas as part of those. Similar to wastewater is having certain main replacements at certain diameters and at certain intersections, particularly along the I-15 corridor. And then having a master plan as part of these kind of helps sets the guide for those. Recycled water, those can be used as part of those particular projects as we expand our recycled water efforts in certain locations to have certain those infrastructure lines put in as the facilities are brought online. Those main lines would have to be put in to essentially tap into those new recycled water resources. The general plan, as the city grows, as does the city's capacity, so an expansion of City Hall and council chambers, potentially moving from this location to another, and also an expansion of the public works yard over time. Same thing with the sheriff's substation. Right now, that one is tied, so as part of, as additional police services are needed over time, the expansion of a sheriff's substation would also be necessary to accommodate those services of approximately $10 million. Parks and open spaces, these would be essentially new facilities or rebuilds of existing facilities to handle the additional capacity through new developments such as the community center, senior center. The Ingalls Event Center has certain expansions for that project, as well as our particular parks and staging areas and ancillary arenas. Brings us back to the overall total. With that, myself and department head, possibly mostly the department heads will talk about these projects, and then I can discuss any of the compliance aspects of the development impact fees. Back to you, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Bowen, any questions or comments? Councilmember Sullivan. Mayor Pro Tem, or Councilmember Bash, sorry, I was going to give you a promotion, I guess.
Are we, well, I get the heli hydrant, where are we at on that? Anywhere?
We've had preliminary discussions with the Charlie Cox, one of the partners for Hidden Valley Holdings. We're trying to get a meeting set up with him to actually go out through the details. The contractor has actually already done his flow test from the hydrant, closest hydrant, to ensure he's got the necessary PSI to feed that system. And they've picked the site out that the flyboys are good with from the fire department standpoint. So more or less now it's just negotiating the easement.
Is that up here in our hills?
Yes. It's just to get your bearings straight. You're going up Norco Hills Road, you hit Valley, you make a left, so you're going towards the golf course. You hit the golf course road, you make another left. As you're going that road on the right-hand side, there's a little hill up there. If you like, I could always send you an image kind of where that spot's at.
Yeah, I like that. Tim, I had a question. So we have a third fire station in that we have the seasonal one on Hamner Avenue. What would happen if they just, because I've heard over the years they've thought about abandoning it, not being there anymore. Would that be something we would be able to take over?
So actually the opposite has happened. It is now funded year-round. I don't want to say forever as the state budget fluctuates, but as of now they have added additional staffing, and the goal is that station will now be open year-round on the state's mission with a Type 3 brush or wildland fire engine.
Wow. That's really good news.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's the status, Lisette, on the park and ride? Anything?
They did send us an email and an update to relocate the trail from the Caltrans lot. So we have responded that we would like to meet with them to discuss this further, since this was a 20-year project in the making.
25-year.
So, in a way, so that if, because we made all those improvements to the Hamner Park parking side of the street, with the you know, the end result that we were going to swap, and that hasn't happened. So I did request a meeting to see what our options are and whether we could get hopefully first right of refusal to with that property and not do the improvements until we need to.
So we may or may not spend the money that we're thinking it might cost. I mean, where did they get that number?
So on the
Park and Ride.
Sam, sorry.
Related to the engineering costs and primarily the upgrade to the parking lot for electrical charging. The current electrical system didn't meet the new charging standards, so we actually have 100% engineering drawings ready to rock and roll. Just waiting on Caltrans to do what they got to do as far as give us the property. But now, like I said, we've run into some issues where it's all said not feasible, yet we've had capital costs to upgrade our system, as well as now they're asking us as part of the sale of the property to remove the trail from their property and reestablish it off property. So we're basically requesting another meeting because we've gone through all these costs and we've done the upgrades. We got the updated plans. We are now being requested to remove a trail, and we might even get the property. So
Is it possible we've done all this, then they'll go through like DGS, and all of a sudden just somebody could buy it?
perhaps, we don't know, right? And one of the things is we were given, okay, everything's great. As it escalated up to the top, they were telling it wasn't great, and they got kicked back down. And so now we're here trying to move forward diligently without spending a lot of money on a piece of property that we may not get. So we're requesting another meeting with them to discuss the options, because we don't want to move when there's a possibility that the property will not be something that's going to be in control of the city.
We need a good lawyer. And then the widening Hamner, you're talking about 5th and Hamner? That dangerous pole?
Super dangerous. Yeah, so that's for primary, there's a lot of work on that intersection. So not only do you have right-of-way acquisition, which that might be eminent domain, so there's a cost there.
That's $2 million.
I think $2 million. Yeah, I don't know. That number might be a little bit high, but I mean, you're probably talking like $300,000 just to be able to put the new signalization system in the intersection. Probably the improvements are probably maybe $200,000 to $300,000, and then right-of-way acquisition is another thing.
Okay. The recycle water reservoir. Where would that go?
There's been talks about potentially putting a reservoir on the state property, conditioning them to do it, if possible.
Okay.
Right now, we don't have much of a capacity, and right now that may give us something that would give us, especially if we could get that reservoir higher in elevation, give us some pressure differential versus just putting a booster station in. So it's something in the future we want to think about, because right now, we only have a small little tank over at Neil Snipes.
Then how many street projects do we have linked to the county now? I know you probably can't answer that now, but in other words, one of the things you have been pretty good at doing, Chad, is that you're doing street projects that are being funded by the county in large part. How many of those do you have going?
I don't have all my storm drain projects are funded by the county, but the street projects primarily are by Measure R.
But I mean, sometimes when you do the storm drains, what happens is the street has to be improved.
We try to capture as much as possible. And we've gotten, I know on one project, it was the one by your house. We were able to get all of those improvements, curb and gutter, roadway, everything like that, part of the project. And that was nice. I think that was magnitude of $600,000. Thank you, Riverside County Flood Control.
And is there, didn't I see something, playing fields, expansion of playing fields? The prison property. One of the things that I just read an article on is that the state is starting to relook at playing fields as recreation-based and stuff. Maybe that will help us to expand Wayne Macon onto the prison property.
Possibly would have to look at that.
Well, in other words, you got Wayne Macon, but then you get rid of all the barracks, which is going to kill me. But well, they're the last one in the world. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the expansion and revisioning of the sports complex is definitely part of the long-term vision for the CRC site.
That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Newton.
Mayor. Joshua, would you go back to your first page so I can write down this total amount again? $297 million, $250 million. And so obviously these numbers are construction in heaven. It's a wish list, okay? And I understand that. What will our plan be to, as we refine this wish list, okay, to capture our diff fees to fund a portion of this? This is long-range wish list. What is our long-range plan with diff fees
So
to pay for this?
First plan is to apply these to the study and get to those rates that still keeps us marketable to developers. And then as we go into those, we would have a discussion with the particular developers, and then I can maybe call upon Kobe to kind of go into the logistics of some of those.
I'm sorry, and part of that with your answer is, how do you determine what's the point of diminishing returns? At what point in those diff fees do you stop development, right? They go, wow, your fees are way too high. I'm going down the road. I mean, is that part of this equation?
So as part of the study, that I do want to do is, as we come to the results of these and we kind of look at them to some of our neighbors of similar makeup, is are we pricing ourselves out of the market? And then we would then come to council with a proposed one at or about those, but some of the categories we have are unique because of what Norco has. So we'll do our best to align those to those particular aspects. But to underline your question is, the study will come up with a rate based on these unfunded projects that are come from those. We will then work to make them marketable so that we don't scare off the development market. And as part of the diff study process is, once we get to a kind of council blessed draft from subsequent workshops before we actually go to public hearing, this is actually presented to BIA to get their feedback, and they also look at it and see whether it's like, hey, you're going way out of scope, or in there is like, oh, sounds about reasonable. We can live with that.
Okay.
Colby?
Sorry, Kobe.
No, I mean, it's a good question. One question is, what are the comps of our diff rates at the end of the study compared to all the other cities around us? Because there's a good point. If we're double, triple, quadruple the cost of everyone else, BIA certainly would scream at that, but the development community would scream at that. And then you can start incentivizing people to build without permits, so they don't have to pay a diff. Then code enforcement is running rampant, and our attorney is as well. So that is a juggling act. The other thing is, if you take stock of the vacant land inventory in the city, is there enough vacant land acreage-wise or number of development sites to actually generate $300 million? I don't know the answer to that sitting here right now. You know that Wiley Lab site of 429 acres is a major player in that calculation. If it's a sleepy, quiet development, it may not generate a whole lot of this. There's a small inside joke there.
I'd leave it there on that.
So if there's a lot of rooftops, it's a different generator. And then the 85 acres, of course, at the CRC. Right. That certainly will be developed into whatever.
Okay.
Whatever that looks like, and that will certainly be our biggest generator of future diff fees. And there's a calculation that could go to that we could have our development partner, they can run a calculation like that to project what those future costs are. This is one of the first things that they tend to do. So.
All right. So could you go to your fire slide? And couple of questions on this. So unfunded projects, Hella Hydrant. To the best of my knowledge, we have, in our CIP budget, we have funded the Hella Hydrant. It's not unfunded.
That might be a reconciling item that we do because this is in draft form.
We met today to discuss these items, and we identified that one.
Okay.
And so we will.
Because I know that we've been working on that for a few years. I know we have funded that. And then right after that, the pump upgrade catch basin, even though now where we'd go to 100,000.
It's still $70,000. It's still $70,000. It's not 100,000.
I don't want to go back to this leakage statement, but it's not $100,000. We funded
70,000.
some ridiculous number.
Yeah,
okay?
70,000 in Measure R. Yes.
Okay. Those are my only two comments on fire at this time. If you'd go to Public Works, General Government. And this is something that we touched base a little in another workshop under Public Works yard expansion. That I believe you had, Amanda, had asked for, it was like $800,000.
Correct.
To take out that modular.
Yes.
Right? And then we had a short discussion on why don't we work with that funding to put that up at Nellie Weaver Hall, right?
Yes.
And then use that vacant portion for Public Works yard expansion,
Yes,
leaving the block building alone.
Yes, we did talk about, well,
Okay.
the block building does need to go away, but it's for 2 trailers, one for the Parks guys, and then
Right.
also for the Ingalls guys. But yeah, taking one of those trailers and putting them behind the new hall. Correct.
I'm just wondering how we could, with our CIP budget today, if we, massaged it a little bit and looked at it a little closer, we could do some of this Public Works yard expansion presently instead of $15 million, who knows when.
Yeah, we can come down on that number. if we need to.
Yeah, okay. I'll hold you to that one. That's all I have, Mayor.
Questions? Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any questions? Okay. Of these, I'm just wondering, like, on expansion, so for example, the animal shelter rebuild and expansion project, does that mean we're moving the shelter? What does that mean?
Potentially. So this is these are unfunded, unprogrammed projects. This is for the future, right? We're really seeing the impacts of these apartments on our animal services team quite extensively. We don't have enough kennels there, and we are sometimes at max capacity. I think it would be to rebuild the animal shelter, expand our kennel space, potentially be at Ingalls or at another location.
So I understand what the unfunded diffs are. I don't need an explanation of that. I guess maybe my bigger picture is, like, where did these come from and how did we arrive at them and how does it match up with the work that we've been doing to this point? And again, going back to clerical errors with stuff that's here that's already been funded. So I guess I am going to ask a clarifying question. How do we know that the impacts at the shelter are from the new apartments that aren't even fully at full capacity?
I just know from my own staff and talking with them that they've been over at the apartments a lot. So we're really seeing impacts to that. So if we have future development, there is going to be additional impacts to our city.
So they're going over and picking up animals at the apartments because,
They're roaming. We've also had other issues with bites there, and just there are animals at the apartments, and we are dealing with that. So that was it's just an additional impact because of the new development there.
okay, well then I'm going to ask that council be updated or briefed on some of that and the impacts of that so that when we're moving forward on other potential projects, that we can have some background, I guess, or information on that. And then I guess I'm trying to understand, and again, I get it's 25-year projections, think big, all of the things. But in what discussions from council over the last, let's just say 10 years, did departments sit down, develop these and say, yep, we've listened to council, this is kind of the path that we're on, and these are our big dream wish list things? When or how did that discussion take place? Or was it, hey y'all, we need to have, Joshua's working on updating the diff because it hasn't been done in decades, and we need a list of projects so that we can have the nexus and do all the things. Everybody make your wish list and come back and turn them in. Like, how did it go?
It started as part of when we had the development impact fee study. So some of the questions came from there, and then the feedback from council and staff with the consultant on moving forward and updating the list for our development impact fees. One of the items that was noted in that study was that some of the projects that were there weren't eligible, yeah, and stuff. So that's how we started that and got to this point.
Sam, on the storm drain development impact fees, has it not been the city of Norco's practice to apply to county flood control, and that's how we fund drain projects at this time?
True.
Is that practice going to change in the near future?
It's always unknown. We've been blessed with being in zone 2 of the county, which has the most money, but that runs out some eventually. So, and some of these are major projects, especially N2, that's in 6th Street. We don't know, but we're putting it there just in case.
Okay, so then, if I'm not mistaken, in our CIP, we have a major water line project on 6th Street, which is going to be huge impacts. And so, what's the timeline on this? Because usually we try and practice as run things. So if you're tearing up a street, you're getting all the things done, and Kevin alluded to that. So now, like N2, we wouldn't push and try and get that in as a project with the county to try and coincide with the main line that's in the CIP?
I believe they're already kind of looking at it.
Okay.
Something that they would take on versus the city.
Right.
And yeah, so of course, we had to coordinate our water main because there is a bunch of stuff in that street.
Right.
So we'd be coordinating with them on the installation of 12-inch water main, which is less intrusive than putting in a 60-inch RCP storm drain right down the middle of the street.
Okay.
It can also be that certain projects can also have multiple funding sources, so that we can probably use some of it through the county and then part of it through DIF, depending on what is collected and what we have available. Because we maybe only have $1 million in there, but we can then bridge it back and forth between the county and that funding source, depending on prioritization.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the, sorry to add, but a lot of times the county is requiring the city to fund the relocations of our facilities, which technically speaking, the water main's the worst. We did one when we did the North Norco channel. That was like $100-something thousand. So that might be money that is used for those things.
Okay. And then the water master plan update, isn't that something we're required to do?
I'm not exactly sure. I know there was a water master plan update probably 7 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, that Chad was involved, the former director was involved in. But given the fact with the ever-changing landscape, especially Wiley and the prison, there might be some updates there, including the possibility of another reservoir, whether it be domestic or recycled.
Okay. On the general government development impact fees, I did hear comment that it's a potential to move to another location. Because was it the intent of whoever submitted this one to no upgrades to the current chambers that we're using? Is that a correct assumption?
It's the expansion of City Hall, possibly to a new location with our own city council chambers.
Okay, so it would have to be moved to a new location.
Correct,
right?
yes. Mhm.
I guess overall, so this is going to go back to, I hope it's an oversight, that this was just attached at the very back of our packet that we got the other day. It wasn't printed out for council to review or look at ahead of time. And so for me, it's frustrating because I know, Lizette, you just made comment that you took council input from when we were having the discussions on DIF, but this, in my opinion, was not brought up during those discussions. We were really having a presentation on what DIF was, how long it had been since they had been reviewed and updated, and that the study needed to be done. I don't think there was ever any discussion on beyond there has to be a nexus with projects and it has to meet the requirements and all of those things, to getting a list like this put together and completed. So I'm going to push back a little bit on the comments that there was some council input on these particular items. And I guess I will leave it at that. So any other questions or comments over here? Any other questions or comments over here? Okay, do we have anything else?
The end of the presentation, if guess any further comments, council can direct them to staff, and we can get those hopefully by tomorrow, so we can provide adequate responses and make updates to the budget, so we can present a proposed budget at the next scheduled council meeting.
All right, meeting adjourned.